Are we in for another bout of autumn warmth? Just how hot was September? And why do meteorologists care about how thick the atmosphere is? We'll try and answer all of those questions and a few more in this week's Met Office Deep Dive. Welcome along. My name's Alex Deakin, a meteorologist here at the Met Office. And if you've not seen this before, then welcome. And please do hit the like and subscribe buttons. That would do us a big favour. Also, please keep your comments coming, whether you've seen these before, whether you want to see more. We love reading them, whether they're constructive criticism or whether they're suggestions for things that we might do in the future. We do, as I say, read them and take them on board. Do spread the love as well. If you know another Met head who might be interested in these broadcasts, then do let them know and share the fact that we're here on YouTube. This is exclusive to YouTube, so that's another reason to subscribe. We don't share the deep dive anywhere else. Plenty going on, as always, in this week's Deep Dive. Let's start with the broader picture and the satellite image over recent days. It's been kind of stuck in a rut over the recent weeks, actually, recent couple of weeks with low pressure here. You can see the swirl on the satellite image through the weekend, throwing up weather fronts, and they've been brushing in across the UK. To the south of this weather front, it was pretty warm at the weekend, and then as the system cleared away and intensified during Monday, actually created quite a few thunderstorms. You can take a closer look at those storms. Not many thunderstorms during the course of the weekend, but then as we fast forward through to Monday, just look at this batch of storms that developed across the south during Monday evening and afternoon. Let's just pull that back a little bit and throw it through into Monday, particularly lines of storms across parts of the southeast. There's that first one, and then another batch that followed on across the East Midlands, clearing away from East Anglia there just around about midnight. So if you got woken up by a thunderstorm, that was the reason why. Let's also take a look at what that weather system is doing, because it is now clearing away. It's this low here out now across Norway and Denmark. It's quite a potent feature of low pressure, quite a few isobars around it, but it's no longer intensifying. If we run through the next few hours, it's just kind of drifting northwards. The isobars aren't popping out of it. It's just kind of drifting that way. And the reason for that, if we pop the jet stream on, you can see why it's not intensifying, because it's kind of crossed over the jet stream. But also, this little dip in the jet here, we call this a trough, and it's in here that often that it's a breeding ground for low pressure systems. Often it will intensify things in here. But notice this particular dip in the jet stream, how the strongest winds are on this side. Those the streak there, that jet streak as we call it, the pinker colour suggesting that where the stronger winds are on this side. And that means that the air is actually accelerating as it comes through it, and you've got more concentration of air here. Compare that with what's going on out in the Atlantic by day 3. So we're fast forwarding now to Thursday, and look out in the Atlantic. We've got another one of these dips. Admittedly, it's a bigger trough, but this time the pink, the streak, the stronger winds are on this side of the jet, and that's dipping around the base of this jet stream, and then it's kind of decelerating. So the winds on this side are not as strong. So you've got some deceleration, and that means that's creating high up in the atmosphere what we call divergence. So the air is spreading out higher up, and that will allow the air at the surface to rush up, and that creates this area of low pressure. If we play through the sequence, this trough system in here is actually going to intensify this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic through the middle part of the week. So that's just different types of those troughs that we see, those dips in the jet stream, and how they do help to develop or not develop low pressure systems. That's what's going on out in the Atlantic over the next couple of days. But let's bring it back to the UK and check out our weather patterns, because we are going to see some quite interesting weather through the rest of this week. You may have heard there's a warm spell on the way. We'll look at that in more detail in a moment. But first of all, we need to deal with the rainfall, because actually, if we zoom in a bit here, take a closer look at the jet stream over the next few days, pull it back to, where are we now? Tuesday into Wednesday. The jet is kind of in this pretty mobile, it's pretty meridional zonal flow coming in from east to west across the UK. Just look at this weather front. It's in line with the jet stream, so it's not really moving along. Let's take the jet stream off and just play through the next few days, because this is where we're going to see a lot of rain building up. the jet stream is just moving this weather front along. Instead of being perpendicular to it and pushing it, it's in line with it, so that the weather front itself just hangs around in this position. Okay, it wibbles and it wobbles a little bit, but notice it's never very far away from western parts of Scotland. So we are a bit concerned here that this weather front will continue to bring rain. Okay, another weather system comes in, but it's bringing another set of weather fronts into that same part of the world. So with the rain really building up, yes, it's western Scotland, it does see a lot of rain, but that rain really building up over a number of days could cause some problems because that weather front is still wiggling, still waving, even as we head into Friday and potentially even into Saturday, because it's in line with where the jet stream is. So there's nothing to really move it along. So that is why we're a bit concerned about the rainfall in this part of the world. Let's zoom in a little bit. And there indeed is the weather warning that we've got for Thursday and Friday. But even before that, we've got a weather warning here for Wednesday. So we'll see some heavier rain coming in on that weather front, bringing potentially, gone through beyond the rainfall. Let's pause it there. In this zone, across parts of western Scotland, the rain really building up over the next 24 hours or so through Wednesday. But then there's another warning in place, a broader warning. We've got that wider warning because there's a bit of uncertainty about exactly where that weather front is going to lie. So it could be a little further north, it could be a little further south. But during Thursday, Friday, and into the night, Friday night into Saturday, we could easily see 150 millimetres of rain, 170 maybe over the hills. At lower levels, it won't be as much as that. But that kind of rainfall this time of year, after what's been a fairly wet couple of weeks, could cause a few issues. So we do have that Met Office warning in place. It is a broad area, and that's because of that uncertainty about exactly where that weather front is going to sit. Another way of looking at that is if we compare the three computer models we most look at. So this is the UK model here, this is the European model here, this is the American model here, and this is showing the rainfall totals building up. So hopefully you can make out the outline of Scotland there, and these red patches, purple patches, that's the western side of Scotland, and that's where we're bearing the brunt of that rainfall. So you probably can't quite read that in there, but that says 131 millimetres of rain building up in this zone. European model not quite so heavy with its rainfall, 76 millimetres, so around about half, and the same for the American model. Now, the American model doesn't have quite as good a resolution of the hills in this part of the world, so it often downplays it. The reason the European model doesn't have as much rainfall here is to do with the development of the jet stream and how it interacts. And actually, the jet in the European model is further down here, and it's a more amplified pattern, and that is taking the weather fronts a little further north. So that's why in the European model we haven't got quite as much rainfall in this zone. But either way, those kind of amounts could cause some issues. So that's why we're keeping a close eye on it, because it could create some flooding problems if we see those amounts of rainfall, particularly from the UK model, realised, as we say, over the next few days. So you may have heard that there is some warmer weather on the way, but it isn't going to be everywhere. Parts of western Scotland are going to be very, very soggy for the rest of this week. Because of that weather front kind of aligning with the jet stream, we're just going to see a train of rain coming in here day after day. So that's something we're keeping a close eye on. The other thing, though, is the potential for some warmth elsewhere. So let's take a look at that, because as the jet stream moves northwards, as we see this development out in the Atlantic, as this trough digs down, it then pushes the low pressure systems further north. The jet stream moves its way further north, and that is allowing to the south of that this big chunky area of high pressure to move in, or just to sit to the south of the UK. And as that then moves its way across towards France, what that will do is allow warmer air to waft up from the south. So let's put the temperature profile on, take the jet stream off. So the high pressure is moving this way, and that warmth is just there. You can see moving up across the UK. So it is going to get quite a bit warmer over the next few days, probably peaking Saturday and into Sunday. If we take a look at some of the projected temperatures, these are the maximum temperatures. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, kind of high teens, maybe up into 20 Celsius across the southeast. So actually close to average for the time of year with these temperatures. But if we fast forward to Friday, we're up into the low 20s across the southeast. So it's this part of the world, England or Wales, where we're most likely to see these temperatures jumping up. And then on Saturday, look at that. We could easily, in this zone, reach 24 degrees in the capital, maybe 25, 26, usual zone somewhere just to the north of London, perhaps up towards Cambridgeshire. 25, 26 is possible on Saturday, and similar temperatures on Sunday. So yes, it is like to get pretty warm for October. We're a long way off the record, which is 29.9 Celsius, an October record that was set in 2011 on the 1st of October. So we're unlikely to get to that number, but these numbers are pretty high, pretty exceptional warmth. Notice even across parts of Scotland by Saturday as that weather front is probably shifting a little further north. Temperatures in the high teens across the central belt, up to 20 degrees maybe there in Belfast. So yeah, it's not going to be very warm across the northwest of Scotland, 14, 15 here, but for much of the UK, we will see that warmth building as we go through Saturday and into Sunday as well. How long it lasts, that's a big question mark. There is a bit of uncertainty about that, and that's partly tied in with another tropical system out in the Atlantic, but we'll have more on that in the 10-day trend tomorrow. Alex Deakin will talk you through that, how long this warm spell is going to last. But we are going to see some significant warmth for the time of year coming in across the UK. Let's take a look at why that might be now. I'm going to talk thicknesses and the thickness of the atmosphere, which is something meteorologists really like to look at in terms of temperature. This graph is showing the 1,000 to 850 hectopascal thickness. And we're basically talking about how thick the lower part of the atmosphere is. So hectopascal is another word for millibar. So at the surface, as we know, pressure is around about 1,000 millibars, give or take. Sometimes it's higher if you've got high pressure, sometimes it's lower if you've got low pressure. As you go up through the atmosphere, obviously the pressure reduces. And eventually, if you go up through the atmosphere, you will reach a point where you've got 850 hectopascals, 850 millibars. And if you take that as a slice from 1,000 to 850, then you can measure how thick the atmosphere is. So let's try and look at that in another way. Oh, didn't delete my homework from before when I was practicing. Okay, so we've got a line here. Let's call that the 1,000 hectopascal line. Broadly speaking, that's the surface, okay? As you go up through the sky, you will eventually reach a level of 850 hectopascals, 850 millibars. And that distance there is your thickness. That is how thick the atmosphere is, that slice of the atmosphere. But what would happen if you inject some warmth? If you put a bit of warmth into this, let's put some red arrows in there. We're injecting some warmth into the atmosphere. What's it going to do? What happens when you warm things up? Well, it expands, doesn't it? So a warmer atmosphere, if you have the same chunk of air, but you warm it up, then what's going to happen? You're going to get an expansion of the air. So the thickness will increase. So if you've got a warmer atmosphere, then the 1,000 hectopascal line, let's change it back to white along there. That hasn't really shifted. That's still down here. Oh, we've got the thicker line. But what happens if you warm it up is the 850 line is now up here. So this distance, this distance is greater than this distance. So you've got a bigger thickness. So that's when meteorologists are talking about thicknesses. It's basically to give you an idea of how warm, how inherently warm the atmosphere is. And it's more useful than just looking at the temperatures at the surface, because that's impacted by a lot of things. The ground temperature, the temperature of the earth, the temperature of the sea, the way the land lies, and that kind of thing. So this is a better way of looking at the kind of fundamentals of that bottom slice of the atmosphere, just how warm it is. Now this is showing that slice, how thick we are for Saturday across the UK. Now it's still pretty chilly across northern parts. So we've got 134 there across northern Scotland. But in the south, we've got little pockets here of 140. What does the 140 mean? Well, that's in decameters, which is tens of meters. So 140 decameters, times that by 10, that's how many meters you've got. So the thickness of the atmosphere is basically 1.4 kilometers in this red pocket here. That's 139, that's 138, and it's much cooler, the air up here. So it's just showing that gradation of how warm the air is going to be in the south on Saturday. And Sunday is even more remarkable, because by Sunday you've got this plume of warmer air. Look at that 142 there of the Bay of Biscay, and it's 140 across the south, 139, 138 across most of England and Wales. Now, to give you a point of reference, when we had the hottest day ever recorded in the UK back in July 2022, the thickness in eastern England was 144.2 decameters. So we're not far off that. Now, we're not going to get to 40 degrees, obviously, this weekend because, well, we're a few decameters down, but that kind of ballpark, 140 decameter thickness air, that warmth of air could easily support 30 degrees, maybe low 30s in the summer months. But, of course, you haven't got the angle of the sun at this time of year to really heat that lower part of the atmosphere up. So that's why we're not going to see those kind of numbers. But we could easily see 25 or 26 degrees during the course of the weekend because this air is so inherently warm. It does depend on how much sunshine you get, obviously, and obviously the elevation of the sun, as I talked about, makes a big difference as well. But just wanted to show you the thickness of the atmosphere, just how incredibly warm this air actually will be as we go through the weekend. So that's something to keep an eye on, the temperatures through the weekend. Quick look back now on September, because we've been talking about it quite a lot. September was a pretty remarkable month. They issued a press release yesterday, so check that out for the full stats. But basically, September was the equal warmest on record for the United Kingdom, tying with 2006. But if you break it down, for England and Wales, it was the warmest on record. For Northern Ireland, it was the joint warmest. And for Scotland, it was the third warmest on record. But break it down into counties, and if you live in one of these dark red counties, then you had your warmest September on record. So these dark reds are the warmest. These next shade down are the second to fifth warmest, and parts of Scotland were in the upper third. So that's why overall Scotland had its third warmest September on record, whereas other parts of the UK had their warmest, particularly focused across the south. So it really was a remarkable September. September was warmer than July. That doesn't happen very often. And it's going to be this year that July is the fourth warmest month of the year. And that hasn't happened before. So there's an interesting stat to impress your friends with at home. It's never happened before on our records, going back to 1884, that July was the fourth warmest month of the year. Just to let that sink in for a second. There's been a load of stats around September. As I said, check out our press release for more on that. But we've already had the warmest June on record this year, and now we've had the joint warmest September on record. Why was September so very warm? That's also quite interesting, because it was definitely a month of two halves, because the last couple of months, last couple of weeks of September certainly didn't feel all that warm. This is a Hovmolar. I'm giving you all the treats today. We've got a Hovmolar in this week's deep dive as well. This is taking a slice through the atmosphere about 5 kilometers up. This is lines of longitude going across the bottom here. So this is the eastern hemisphere. This is where we're going west. We are here because we're on the 0 degree, the Greenwich meridian. This line here, that's the Greenwich meridian. This black line here is where we are now in time, because the bigger picture, the bigger y-axis going back here all the way to the start of September. So this is date. So we're going back in time up to the start of September, and then beyond this black line, we're going forward in time. Now, the orangey red blobs basically showing where high pressure is in control of our weather for that first part of September, sitting just to the east of us. So we had high pressure sitting to the east, southerly winds that generated. That was why that first week of September was exceptionally warm, and we had the warmest day of the year, and again that's pretty rare to have that in September. Since then things have changed for us on this black line, a few green blobs there because low pressure has been more in control through the second half. But I want you to notice here how that orange, okay, weakened a little bit, but generally this part of the world, so between about 20 and 40 degrees east, so the central parts of Europe, have stayed with the higher pressure almost through the entire month. So we've had high pressure dominating just to the east of the UK or central parts of Europe for most of the month. Notice also blobs of orange appearing down there, suggesting that higher pressure is going to come back, and that's part of the warming trend that we're seeing later this week. But that's quite remarkable through September. So central and eastern parts of Europe have been dominated by areas of high pressure. Another way of looking at that is to break the month down into two halves. This data is from NOAA, the Physical Science Laboratories, and this is showing the pressure anomalies, so the difference of pressure from normal for the first half of September. So this is the dates are in American, so they're the wrong way around. So the 9th of the 1st of the 9th, that actually means 1st of September 23 to the 15th of September 2023. So the pressure anomalies, how different the pressure was from the average, and that average is 91 to 2000. So the climatological average of pressure, how different was it for those first 2 weeks of September? Answer: a lot. This is much lower than normal pressure sitting here just to the west of Iberia, whereas further north, higher pressure across the UK, but also across much of Central Europe. And this was the whole of those 2 weeks. So we've seen the pressure for the first part of September much higher than average here, lower than average here. When you've got low pressure here, the wind's going around this way, high pressure winds going around that way. That is generating southerly winds up across the UK, hence why it was so warm. Let's take a look at the second 2 weeks, the second half of September, because again, really striking. It's rare that these graphs are so very obvious, but this is a really deep area of purple here, showing that pressure was much lower than average to the west or northwest of the UK through the second half of September. So this graph is from the 16th of September to the 29th, so not including the full month, but as near as. And again, quite a strong signal that we've had low pressure sitting to the west of the UK. That's been generating warmth because we've still seen winds coming up from the southwest. So it has been still mild, but it's obviously been a lot wetter because we've had low pressure. But also notice here that for both the start and the end of the month in these central and eastern parts of Europe, as was borne out by the Hofmüller, pressure has been higher than average. And again, here you've got high pressure, so winds going around that way. Here you've got low pressure winds going around that way. So in here, we've been drawing up the winds from the south, which is why not just the UK had a very warm September. France, Czech Republic, Latvia, Poland, Denmark, Belgium, all recorded their warmest September on record. Their records, in most of these cases, don't go back as far as ours, but still, most of them do go back a good 100 years. And Croatia and Netherlands were the second warmest. This is just a sample size. This has not been confirmed, this data, by the individual weather services of those countries, but looking at the stats, France, Czech Republic, Latvia, Poland, Denmark, Belgium provisionally all had their warmest Septembers on record, and that is the reason why, because that pressure was just kind of stuck in that rut. So I thought it was really quite interesting about September as to why we were warm, but also other parts of Europe were warm as well. I think that's about it for this week's deep dive. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please, as I say, do keep your comments coming in. We do love to read them. If you've enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. And do share it as well. Let people know that we do this, and keep the comments coming in about what you'd like us to cover in the deep dive. Check out tomorrow's 10-day trends. It'll be interesting to see how the weather patterns do develop through the course of the early part of next week in particular, and that will be with Alex Deakin. That'll be up on YouTube probably around about 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. So do check that out. And yeah, just one big thank you from me. Thank you for Simon, who's been recording next door. But we're a big team. I know that a lot of the comments are for Alex and Aidan, but actually we are a big team. There's Simon recording this next door. Sometimes it's Steve, sometimes it's Adrian, and a lot of thought and effort goes into the making of the graphics and compiling of those things as well. So just wanted a big shout out to the rest of our content team also. But that's about it. So I will be quiet and hopefully see you again soon. Thank you.